The Bodyguard and the Heir by C.S. Lewis. Read for you by Dallin Bradford. 1. The Attack. When the first explosion rattled the building, he knew what that meant. The gates at the entrance had been blown open, bent metal scattered and laid flat like a carpet to welcome two black Humvees that now descended into the property. Men carrying automatic assault rifles followed. His only concern was to reach Christian before the intruders did. He knew the intruders well, had known them long before they rushed the metal gates and over the walls of the master's property and began killing his men, leaving bodies along the outer gardens of the great mansion. His own security team scattered like thrown decks of cards all over the corridors. Trained well, they did their best, but they couldn't hold back the advancing men wearing black suits with red ties, their distinctive apparel. Nathan led his team away, hoping to buy some time. He needed to secure Christian and get him into the waiting vehicle that would take him to the designated safe house. Those were the rules. That was the set plan he had to follow. If Nathan didn't get to him, he hated to think what would happen. This is what they had been trained to do. This is what they were paid for. Secure the Heir. Get him away safely. The director of the security team drilled this into them every day. Always be prepared for anything. Nathan was recruited for his military knowledge and training, and that was one of the reasons he was placed in charge. Don't make me regret putting you in command, the director had said to him. He furrowed his brow. He hated being drilled, when he knew the role well. Keep them at bay long enough so I can secure the Heir, Nathan said to his men. The security team was the best, not just because they had been hand-picked by him, but because they had the experience required to protect their charge. Their job was to defend the Heir, and that was their only task. They had to be the best. Military soldiers devoted to the craft, skilled in engaging with hostiles. They trained every day, from the crack of dawn, running the track, preparing at the shooting range. They were trained to anticipate anything. They were the best of the best. Nathan hurried up the staircase and ran down the long corridor. The home was beautifully decorated, with sculptures and paintings by famous painters. A few pricey rugs lined the corridor. The place looked like a museum in some areas, with decorative patterns carved along the frames of doorways and walls. The home reminded him of a royal palace, too big of a building for the young master to be roaming alone. It certainly had quite a lonely atmosphere. The mansion was large and had over 50 rooms. To say this place was huge was an understatement. Christian's room was at the end of the hall, where a single large window overlooked the back of the property, overlooking a white stable, which housed the master's 4 beautiful horses. The scent of oil paint greeted his nose when he opened the door and entered the master's bedroom. The room was filled with artwork, paintings hung from the walls, drawings in pencil and color markers, and watercolor displayed upon easels and art tables. A large bookshelf filled with a variety of books lined one wall of the large room. Beside it was a small seating area designed for the leisure of reading in peace. In front of him, at the far end, was a balcony with white linen curtains cascading down the frame to the floor. He had often seen them open on windy days, blowing a breeze into the quiet space to bring in the scent of fresh garden flowers along with it. Nathan stared towards the bed. The satin sheets and cushion quilts reminded him of his moments upon them when he was requested to remain. The thought now made him blush. He moved over, almost drawn by the memories of his time here, when he caught sight of him seated on the floor near the bed table. He looked frightened. Nathan lowered his gun, placing it into the holster as he approached the bedside. Christian? The young man immediately looked up, his eyes widening at the call of his name. When he spotted Nathan, he immediately rose and rushed to his side. Christian at once wrapped his arms around him. It caught Nathan off guard. It delighted him that the young man was safe. Christian trembled in his arms, and Nathan held him tightly, hoping to calm the other man. From somewhere in the mansion, the chaos continued. Christian gripped onto him tighter at the sound of explosions and gunfire. "I feared the worst," the young man uttered. Nathan held him, never wanting to let him go. He knew it was wrong to adore the one he was meant to guard and protect, and that such feelings could cloud his judgment, but he could no longer help how he felt for the young man. "I'm so scared, Nath. What if they get close this time? What if—" They had attempted before, but they had not succeeded. "Listen to me, Christian. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." The young man's lips brushed across his neck. Nathan pushed him away, slowly lifting Christian's chin. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, he resisted the kiss that lingered between them. He couldn't let his feelings cloud his mind. He had to stay on task, and that was getting Christian to the safe house, or at least the vehicle awaiting him by the east wing. "We have to get you to safety," he forced himself to say instead. "The vehicle is waiting by the east wing of the house. I want you to stay close behind me. Don't move unless I tell you to." Christian nodded. Nathan lifted the cold steel of his gun into his hand again and moved to the door. Christian followed very closely. He opened the door and moved into the hallway. The sounds of chaos echoed loudly throughout the mansion's interior and down the long hall. "Are we going to make it? I don't want to lose you, Nath. I can't deal with being alone. I won't." "Don't talk like that. Nothing is going to happen. We will get out of this, trust me." Christian nodded with difficulty, and a smile rewarded Nathan. "You trust me?" Nathan asked. He knew Christian had no one else. His father, Arthur, was always away on business, and when he was around, it was as if Christian didn't exist. His father had many enemies. He was a very powerful man. Nathan had been hired to protect Christian. During the first weeks at his job, that's what he tried to do. But Christian tried to befriend him the first time they met. He could see the young man was lonely, but he had been hired to protect him, not to be his friend. "Why are you so serious?" the young man had asked him, while he was standing nearby on watch. Christian had been seated outside, painting. He had been friendly, trying to engage Nathan in conversation for days. Nathan was trained to never take his eyes off what was at stake, never get distracted from what he had to do, and most importantly, never get involved or close to the subject. Speaking to anyone, especially the subject, was prohibited. Never get too close was a rule in his line of work. Get too close, and you'll get burned. "I just want to be friends. You don't have to be so serious around me." Nathan had stared over at the young man, then coldly replied, "Your father doesn't pay me to be your friend." Nathan knew that was a horrible thing to say. He knew that now, but at the time, it was the only thing to say. Then, it had only been a job. Now, it had become something far more, and it made him blush to think of his moments alone with Christian. Things had changed with time, and he had fallen in love with Christian. Finding him in pain and lonely, Nathan had tried to comfort him. A bad thing to do in his line of work. He was there to protect, not make friends. Others in his field would tell him it was dangerous to get involved with the protected. But that logic had failed him long ago. "Will you keep me company?" Christian had asked him one evening when he had been lonely. All he needed was a friend. A part of him fought with the strict and disciplinary part of himself. But there was a softer side to Nathan, and that wall almost immediately came down. As he took a seat by Christian's bedside, the young man began to read to him. That was the beginning of their relationship, if one could call it that. He was his protector. But now, he was in love with him. 2. The Ambush. They moved slowly down the staircase and entered the main corridor. Nathan spotted his team scattered on the floor. They were all dead. He stopped Christian and pushed him back. He didn't want the young man to see this. There was too much death, and his mind would not be able to handle such a sight. They moved in the other direction, hoping to reach the back of the property, when they were confronted by a group of black suits. They fired, and Nathan grabbed Christian, shielding and pushing him back around the corner of the corridor. He shoved Christian back and gave a few shots around the corner, even if they were only warning blows. He didn't want them to get any closer. "Give it up, Nathan. All we want is the heir. You can live. What's his life worth to you? Your own? Come on." The voice echoed off the walls. He recognized the voice, an old friend from their days in the military. Apparently, they had both taken the same type of work, but he ended up protecting the heir, and his old acquaintance was there to take the same man. "Why, Joseph, why?" "Oh, come on, Nathan. Do you really have to ask me that? I'm tired, aren't you? I mean, come on. What have we returned to? This? They're expecting us to return to normal. You and I are not made for this. We're fighters. Warriors. You and I are made for more. We can't go back to normal? Shit, what do we know about normal?" He laughed. "Death is our normal." "That's bullshit, Joseph." "Is it? There's no point in dying over this. Why don't you join us? There's better money to be made at kidnapping." Their laughter mocked Nathan. He fired, taking one down. That got their attention. "Fuck it then, have it your way. Tráelo," he heard in Spanish. Who else was he working for? A cartel? "Get back, Christian," he told the young man. "I want you to go." "And leave you? No way, I will not." "I said go," he growled. From around the corner, he heard the sounds of clicking and immediately knew what was happening. Christian hesitated, and Nathan turned to him, barking an angry order. He knew he was being cruel, but he was trying to protect the other man. "Go!" he yelled again. Christian stumbled away, but almost immediately the firing began. Nathan raced away, just as the few shots hit where he had been standing. He leaped and grabbed Christian, ducking behind a water fountain, just as the bullets flew past them. A man emerged with a machine gun, firing into the long corridor. "You don't have to die for him, Nathan. Just give us what we want and I'll let you walk out." Christian was shaking uncontrollably. "Maybe you should do as he said. I don't want—" he whispered. "Not another word, Christian," Nathan firmly told him, while moving over to the side of the fountain to see if he could spot an escape route. Christian's slim lips curved at the corners. He felt warmed by Nathan's concern. Nathan definitely wasn't like that in the beginning. It had been a major jump from the cruel bodyguard to the loyal, protective man Christian saw in front of him. Nathan spun and steadied his gun, aiming for the man with the machine gun, striking him in the shoulder. His shot knocked the man back, and bullets rained down as he fell backward and struck a few of his crew behind him. Nathan fired again. The bullet struck the man in the throat, though not before one of the man's bullets hit Nathan in the side. Nathan dropped back, tightly holding his wound as he collapsed to the floor. Christian kneeled next to him. There was fear in his eyes. "Nathan, no!" Everything around Nathan became a haze, and he could no longer hear the voices or bullets. Christian was reaching toward him in panic. He was crying, his eyes filled with terror. All Nathan could feel was the dull pain in his side, crawling up his arm. His fingers edged over the wound, and he could feel the liquid drench his hand. It was blood. He felt dizzy, about to lose consciousness. He wanted to sleep, but he couldn't. He couldn't leave Christian alone. He had to protect him. He loved him. "Don't leave me," the young man cried. Christian dropped his face onto Nathan's neck to hold him. Nathan blinked his eyes open, The touch of his young man had awakened far more than his senses. He felt the young man's lips against his neck, his own warm mouth pressing so tenderly upon the side of Christian's cheek, taking in his scent. "I love you, Nathan. Please, don't leave me," Christian sobbed. "I know you can't, because you're protecting me, but I don't care. You're the only person I have ever cared about, the only person I've ever loved." Christian pulled away, staring at him. Nathan reached up and touched his face. He wanted to tell him so much, if he could. He would take him far from here. "I'm not brave enough," the young man uttered. "Christian, you're braver than the toughest soldier I know. Even me." Nathan gazed up with dreamy, moon-struck eyes. A grin spread over his crooked mouth. "Help me up." Christian did as he requested. He lifted Nathan slowly and pulled him to his feet. Nathan stood, and the younger man reached to kiss him. Only then did he pull away, realizing what he had done, afraid that Nathan would object to his affections. But the tough soldier, the disciplined, brawny Nathan, merely smiled, gently caressing Christian's face. He moved, pulling the dazed Christian alongside him. The young man stumbled behind him, and they hurried toward the other side of the mansion. It was far too quiet now. At the far side, Nathan spotted the open door leading to the hangar path. If they could get to the part of the property where the helicopter was located, Christian would be safe. Unfortunately, it was too dangerous to head on foot into the wooded area surrounding the property. The only other way was through the underground tunnels that led into the world of mazes under the mansion. The tunnels split in various directions, but only one led to the helicopter hangar, and Nathan knew he had to get Christian there safely. They neared the entrance. He pushed open the door, ushered Christian out, and pulled the young man alongside him toward the stable. They approached and ducked into one of the stalls. There was another way to enter the tunnels inside the mansion, but with all the invaders, the only way was inside the horse stable. He patted the white horse as he moved around him to the back, pushing away the hay that hid the entrance to the tunnel below. "What are you doing?" Christian asked. Then he saw the metal entrance. "I never knew this was here." "That's the point. Your father had it created just for emergencies." Nathan pulled open the hatch, and he struggled dragging it up, with the throbbing wound in his side. Christian came to stand next to him and helped him lift the door. Nathan seemed taken aback by the young man's nurturing manner. Christian looked over at Nathan and smiled. "It's actually not that heavy," Christian said in regards to Nathan's questioning eyes and curious wonder. "Oh," Nathan responded and blushed, but moved away to avoid Christian's blue eyes. The metal fell back and he motioned Christian in first. A long ladder led the way down to a dimly lit tunnel below. There were metal cargo boxes sitting along the walls of the tunnel. He knew most were filled with weapons, a heavy arsenal, as Christian's father was in the general business of arms, though mainly in the pharmaceutical industry. Christian's grandfather's company had been a leader in the creation of an important drug that had saved a lot of lives, and he had made it available to the less fortunate. It was Christian's father that wanted to raise the prices. They dropped into the tunnel, and Nathan pulled Christian with him. The underground passageways that led to the hangar were dank and dim, water dripping from small cracks in the wall. They hadn't been well maintained. Little patches here and there covered what little leaks and cracks now riddled the walls. Nathan picked his radio up. He hadn't had much use for it until now. He wanted to keep the radio silenced, at least until it was necessary. He stopped near a section that split in two directions, pulling at Christian's arm when he didn't immediately stop. One tunnel continued straight to the hangar, and the other led to the other east wing of the mansion. These were the underground tunnels that were often used to bring in goods and avoid the media. "Come in, Unit 2. Connor, can you read me?" Silence. Again he tried. "Anyone out there? Connor, come in." Nathan gasped as only static followed. Had no one survived? Hadn't the others called for backup? Then a faded voice replied from the other end. "Hope." "Commander Mason, come in." "Yes, Connor?" A sigh escaped Nathan's lips. "Connor is dead, sir." He dropped his head. Christian watched him as he clutched his side. "This is Officer Carter." "Where are you, officer? Speak to me. What happened? Where is everyone?" "We were ambushed, sir. Something went wrong. They knew where we would be. I'm thinking there was a spy, someone working on the inside, sir." Nathan furrowed his brow, staring back at Christian. The young man didn't look surprised. He looked far more worried by the news. Scared now. "Where are you, officer?" "We're at the hangar now." "We're heading in your direction, Carter. I have the air." "You have 20 minutes, sir." Then silence. 20 minutes? Nathan wrinkled his brow. What did that mean? "What? What are you talking about, officer?" "We've been ordered to rig the place, sir. Orders from the heads." "Rig the place?" "Officer, what are you saying?" "The place, sir, it's rigged to blow. If we don't leave now, we aren't—" "But we have to secure the air. That is our main objective." "I'm afraid not, sir. Our orders are to destroy the property if breached." Nathan didn't understand. "You have less than 20 minutes to get to the hangar." There was a sudden explosion from the other end. Nathan pulled the radio back from his face. "We're under attack!" he heard Carter yell. Static made it difficult to hear. He heard a horde of screaming and shooting. He gasped. "Officer Carter, what's going on? Come in! Come in!" There was static. Then the radio went dead. "Carter! Officer Carter, answer me! Shit!" Nathan threw the radio to the ground, and once again grabbed at his lower side. It was obvious what had happened. They had gotten to the helicopter, and the explosion more than likely was the helicopter going up in flames. "Fucking bastards!" Christian neared Nathan, and he looked troubled. "We're not getting out of here alive, are we, Nathan?" He gazed over at Christian. "Don't speak like that. I'm not letting anything happen to you. I made you a promise." He grabbed at his side, groaning in pain. Christian reached for him at once. "Nathan, you're really hurt. We need to stop the bleeding," Christian said as he knelt by him, tearing part of the sleeve of his expensive silk shirt. Nathan cringed as the pain returned. Christian began to wrap a portion of the cloth around his side. "I'm fine," Nathan muttered. "The only important thing is to get you out of here." He bit his lip as the pain throbbed down his lower side. "No, you're not. You have to stop. Sometimes you can be so arrogant. I know you, Nath." Nathan blinked. He didn't say anything, merely watching Christian as he secured the cloth around his side to stop the flow of blood. "You and I know what's happening here. I'm not a kid anymore. I might be young, but I know what's going on." Christian's blue eyes smiled back at him. Nathan knew Christian was an intelligent 20-year-old man. Young, yes, but no longer a child. He was older in mind and wiser in soul than most people Nathan knew. "My grandfather left me a lot of money. The business, everything is mine." Nathan was hearing this for the first time, although he had suspected something like that. Most certainly, he didn't know Christian's father was now going to let him die here in order to secure what he possessed. "I'm no idiot. Father wants me out of the way because he wants everything my grandfather left me. He can't do anything. He can't sell or change anything unless he owns it. For a long time it was easy to take control of, but now he knows he's losing everything. I'm not letting him destroy what my grandfather left me." Christian collapsed against the wall. "He's never cared about me, and my grandfather knew it. That's why he left everything to me. He knew Father was no good, and he cut him out of the will. By the end of this year, he'll have no control of anything, and now he's desperate." Nathan blinked. Now things started to come together. Get Christian out of the way and own everything, or end up losing everything once the year ended. "But I don't want any of it, Nathan." He turned to the soldier. Nathan was studying his features, examining his large, bright blue eyes. He had more heart than anyone he knew. He wasn't arrogant or selfish. For someone with such wealth, he acted like one with nothing. "All I want is to be with you, Nathan. That's what I want." Nathan was surprised. He didn't know what to say. He balanced himself carefully. "I wanted to ask you something before all this started." Nathan now was having a hard time looking up at Christian. The young man captivated him, and he felt paralyzed by his mere presence. How could a man of his stature, of his age, be so easily beguiled by someone so young? But Christian was not only lovely and beautiful, he was also very wise. And it was that mature respect for others that Nathan had fallen hard for. He might have been young, but he was kind and acted far older than his age. "This is not the time, Christian," he firmly said. Was he trying to avoid the feelings he held for Christian? And why? To protect Christian? To protect himself? "This is the only time, Nathan," Christian stubbornly replied. Grabbing his arm suddenly, Nathan pushed him, and they were face to face now. He felt drawn to kiss him, and Christian seemed just as entranced, drawing closer. Nathan pushed at the soft locks of his dark hair, stroking his soft, tender cheek. Christian bit his lower lip. The gesture itself was hard to resist, and passion exploded within him, straining the fabric of his slacks. Nathan exhaled. He hated when Christian bit his lip, because it made him quiver, and the other man knew it. It revealed how weak and vulnerable Nathan really was. "Don't do that," he ordered the young man. "You know I don't like it when you do that. It's not proper." Christian stopped when he realized he had succeeded in getting to him. "You need to know how I feel," Christian insisted. Nathan caressed his cheek tenderly. He felt weak around the young man. "I wish I could take you away from all this." He swallowed hard. Whatever else he wanted to say, he pushed away. He had already said too much. "It's better this way, Christian." Nathan moved away from him, leaving Christian with his back to the wall. Christian rushed over to him as Nathan spun back, confronted with the blue eyes of the young heir. "It's not—" Nathan pushed a hand over his mouth. Christian meant to protest when Nathan put his finger over his own lips to hush him. Christian listened. He also heard something. Voices from behind them alerted him almost immediately, and Nathan grabbed at Christian's arm, pulling him down the tunnel. "This way." The young man stumbled alongside him, and as they moved, he looked back. Christian's eyes were glued to the wound on Nathan's side. Nathan was leaving a trail of blood. The young man was worried. Nathan stopped near a section that split once more. He took out a few items from his suit. Bullets. There were only a few left. "Nathan, what are we going to do?" "What I said I was going to do. Get you out of here." He took out a second gun and added all the remaining bullets, then grabbing Christian's hand, he placed it gently in his palm. "I want you to take this." He caressed Christian's hand as he closed his fingers around the metal. "What? No, what are you doing?" "Listen to me. I need you to listen very carefully, Christian." He cupped Christian's face with both hands. The young man stopped, frozen by Nathan's touch. Tears pooled in the corner of his eyes. "I want you to start walking in that direction." Nathan pointed to his left. "You listening?" Christian nodded his head slowly. The tears were now rolling down his face. Nathan wiped at them. "I'll be right behind you. You trust me?" Christian nodded again, with difficulty. "Don't do this. Please, come with me." "I will. I promise." "You're a bad liar." Nathan smiled. "I won't let them hurt you. I want you safe. You've given me so much, Christian. It's because of you I've learned to love again. Nothing mattered until I met you." He put his hand on the other man's cheek. Christian held his palm against his face. A sob broke through his lips, and at once Nathan wrapped his arms around Christian and held him tightly. "I love you," he whispered into Christian's ear, then pulled back slowly. Their lips locked, and for a moment, Nathan couldn't let go. He didn't want to, as he gasped in agony. The pain now consuming him was not the pain in his side, but the one radiating from his aching heart. He fought with himself, releasing Christian. A breath escaped him, gnawing at him painfully. He pushed the young man back. "Go," he said. "Now." Christian moved. He looked back, then started running quickly as the voices grew louder. 3. Confrontation. As he watched Christian disappear, Nathan moved towards the nearest door, a closet that had been designed to hold an arsenal of weapons. He shot through the lock. The door popped open, and he took his pick of the heavy arsenal in front of him. He strapped on a vest and placed the suit coat over it. If it came to that, he was prepared to go out with a bang. He just hoped it didn't come to that. He wanted to return to the embrace of the young man. It was the one thing that kept him moving now. He was living on borrowed time. The wound was bleeding through the fabric of the wrap Christian had secured. Nathan grabbed his handgun, preparing to load it, when he heard a sound from behind. It was the click of a gun, and before he could turn, he heard the familiar voice. "Stop right there." Nathan froze. "Put your hands up very slowly and turn to me." He did as he was told, and slowly lifted his hands very carefully and began to twist. He was startled by the sight of the man standing a few steps from him. A man he recognized. Director? Nathan looked confused, but after what little Christian had revealed in regards to his father wanting his inheritance, it started to make sense. The smile from the director made him realize what was happening. Why the helicopter was disabled. Why it had been so easy to get into the well-guarded mansion. Why his men were all dead. We trusted the wrong person. But why would the director be involved? "Don't look so disappointed, Nathan. You must have suspected something." "Why?" Nathan asked. "Easy. The money. Where is he?" A group of black suits approached, along with Joseph, his old partner from his days as a soldier. "He's not going to tell you. He's stubborn," Joseph said, smiling over at Nathan. "You got close." Poor Nathan. "He's long gone. You'll never get to him. He's too smart for you." "You really think you can stop this? You don't have to die. You can continue to work with me," the director said. "I'm not letting you harm him. He's innocent." "He's not getting away. They'll get him. He's not going anywhere," another voice said. A figure approached and came into focus. Nathan realized it was Christian's father, Arthur. "He's your son." "Yeah, that. If only Father would have left me the money and the business, things would have been better for Christian. Maybe he could have ended up with you, Nathan." He didn't look bothered by the fact. "As for you, Nathan, you're done." He could barely see the figures in front of him. "I can't possibly let you leave, knowing what you know." He laughed. Nathan could feel the steel in his hand. He knew he had only 2 bullets left in the chamber. Arthur sneered. "Nothing personal, I hope you understand. If it's any consolation, I can bury you with my son, so you'll be together at last." He laughed. "Kill him," he commanded the director. Nathan swiftly lifted the gun and fired. He struck the director in the shoulder. Arthur quickly took cover. The director shot his own gun, a bullet striking Nathan again as he tried to flee. He was struck a second time, this one in the back, and he dropped to the ground, still holding the gun in his grip. The black suits approached with the director looming over Nathan. "You're done." Nathan fired again, catching the director straight between the eyes. He dropped immediately, and the black suits lifted their AKs. Nathan dropped his gun, groaning in pain, as both Joseph and Arthur came forward. Arthur stopped his men from firing. He knelt before the bleeding Nathan. Nathan tried to speak through the blood running from his mouth. It gurgled, pouring from between his teeth as he tried to talk. "What? What more can you say, Nathan? You did all you had to do. But Christian is in my way, and he must be dealt with. This is really my father's fault. Now I have to kill my only son." He laughed. "Oh well. Nathan, I really liked you. It sucks it has to end this way for you. I could have used a good man like you." Nathan reached up to him, grabbing at his arm. What do you have there, more pleas? Bargaining chips?" He chuckled. "I have something for you." He reached up, his hand closing around Arthur's. "This is for Christian." Nathan's fingers unwrapped, and from within, a pile of grenade pins dropped into the center of Arthur's hand. The man blinked, then gasped, realizing what he was holding in his palm. He looked down at Nathan. He had stopped breathing. He reached down, slowly pushing aside Nathan's jacket, revealing a grenade vest. Arthur barely had time to say a word as he rose and spun around quickly, a single word escaping his mouth. "Shit!" The explosion rocked the tunnels. The walls collapsed over the men and buried them completely. 4. The reality. Christian walked out of the forest. As he found the path, he spotted a vehicle in the distance. The Land Rover Nathan had left for such emergencies. He hurried. There was a large explosion behind him. He spun back, catching sight of a large black cloud of smoke and fire that erupted into the sky. "Nathan!" He gasped and collapsed against a nearby tree. Looking into the forest and hoping to see Nathan running from between the trees. But he knew he wouldn't. He knew he wouldn't see Nathan again. Christian wiped at the tears in his eyes. He examined the gun in his hand and dropped it to the ground. He moved away, looking back only once as he approached the Land Rover. There he found the keys on the tire, where Nathan had often revealed hiding an extra pair for emergencies. "You're gonna be all right, Christian. You're strong," Christian recalled as he settled in the driver's seat. "You've always been strong." "If I asked you to come away with me, would you, Nathan?" He recalled Nathan's smiling face as they laid under the silk sheets of his bed the night they had been together. "Christian, what do you see in me? I have nothing to offer you." "Shut up, and answer my question," Christian demanded. He sat up on the bed to examine the features of the very handsome older man, ash locks of hair, and dreamy green eyes. What indeed had he seen in Nathan? Besides the obvious, the man was strikingly handsome, ripped like a chiseled god, with a manly jaw, and above all, mysterious and dangerous. Christian was attracted to danger, and Nathan was oozing with it. The bodyguard was always on alert, except for this evening, when he had been seduced by his boyish charm. Was it possible? The only rise was the rise beneath the sheets, Christian recalled with a devilish grin. Nathan had reached to stroke his cheek. If things were different, I would go anywhere to be with you, he recalled Nathan saying. Nathan removed a necklace from around his neck, one Christian had never seen him without. He put it around Christian's neck. I want you to have this, so you'll always have a part of me with you. Christian now caressed the metal under his fingertips, examining it. Hung from a silver necklace was a silver ring decorated with diamonds and rubies. It was my mother's, Nathan revealed. It's the only thing I have from her. Nathan's mother had died of cancer 5 years earlier, and she had been the most important person in his life. I can't take it. It's far too important, Christian had protested. Nathan had pushed his hand back, draping the necklace over Christian's neck. Yes, it is. Nathan had smiled. Just as you are to me. That's why I want you to have it. He stroked a finger across Christian's face. Keep it, as my promise to you that one day. Christian gave him no time to finish and kissed him. Nathan, we're free. Christian felt the surface of the ring again and tucked it back under the collar of his ruined long-sleeve silk shirt. He pulled out into the clearing, finding the dirt road that would take him to the open street and to safety. This has been The Bodyguard and the Heir by C.S. Lewis. Read for you by Dallin Bradford.